States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome. Today is Tuesday, October 9th, 2018.
Missouri? Here. Basil?
Here.
Whalen?
Here.
Burrows?
Here.
Meyer? Here. Kraus?
Here. We have the minutes from September 24th. Are there any changes? Don, is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made, and there is a second. Any questions on the motion? Roll call.
Missouri?
Yes.
Basil?
Yes.
Whalen?
Yes.
Burrows?
Abstain.
Meyer?
Yes.
Clark?
Yes.
Kraus?
Anyone from the audience wish to address the board tonight? With that, we have the village commission's beautification. Anything? They're meeting tonight.
Yeah, nothing as of tonight.
4th of July. Mercy.
I'm pretty much done with the numbers, except we didn't get a bill for the workers from the village, but we took so far about a $2,500 loss. It'll be a little more than that. But we have money in the bank for next year, as long as we don't spend anything.
Youth Commission, trustee Missouri.
So our next event is this Friday night. We are taking
I'm sorry, Don, both doors have to stay open.
Oh, they have to stay open?
Yeah.
Sorry.
We'll have to put up with each other's
Phone
noise,
is
that's all.
ringing.
It's your phone that's ringing.
No, it's a cell phone.
It's their phone was
Oh, their phone.
So our next event is this Friday night. We're taking the middle schoolers to Haunted Hills Hospital. And that is all I have. I know they passed out flyers today, so I know you can still sign up to go.
Historic preservation, trustee Miller.
We have some work being done on the depot.
It's complete.
It's complete?
It is,
Okay.
yeah.
So that buttons it up for the winter. We're also going to cover some outside, the wagon and the hand cart and so on. We have a meeting next week. We're trying to figure out what night, so we'll let everyone know about that. And that ends my report.
Are the sills painted too, Matt?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Brian,
Yeah, treasurer's report and report of financial activities.
All right, the total of all village accounts, $3,248,181.39. The total of the commission accounts, $202,061.72. Total of all accounts together, $3,450,243.11. The month-end total in general, $1,164,172.69. The total of the commission non-AP payments, $212,075.27. That's all I have, unless anyone has questions.
There's no questions. I'd like to make a motion approving the treasurer's report and the report of financial activities for the prior month.
motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second to the motion, any questions?
Variance reports for the preceding month are
Excuse me,
enclosed.
Frank?
I'm sorry, I always do that. I'm too fast.
Kraus?
Yes.
Meyer?
Yes.
Caprows?
Yes.
Whalen?
Yes.
Basil?
Yes.
Missouri?
Yes.
Various reports for the preceding month are enclosed for your review. And approval of the bills for the prior month. We had some additions today. $1,494.48 for call one. $886.60 from Gallagher Asphalt. No, that's not highlighted, I don't think. Was that one? No, that was on there, I believe. $900 from Canute's. $60.17 from Martin Whalen. Carino Brothers, $25.66. And Suburban Labs for $776. Any questions of the bills? If not, I'd like to make a motion to approve the bills for the prior month for $178,954.96.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There is a second, any questions or motion? Roll call.
Zurich,
Yes.
Beecher,
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
Okay, consider a motion approving acceptance of the audit for fiscal year 2017-2018. Brad Porter from Lauterbach and Amen will present the audit and the management letter to the village board for review and discussion. Following presentation, a motion is in order to accept the audit and authorize it for public release and filing. The audit has provided under separate cover. After the meeting, staff will like to have your paper copies of the audits back for mailing to various agencies.
Great.
Brad?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Brad Porter. Again, I'm with Lauterbach and Amen, the village's auditing firm. I've been the client manager now for the last 3 years since we had started with the village. I'd like to start tonight by thanking Bob, Jeanette, and Donna again for it takes a lot of work in preparation of an audit, and you guys have made it look easy. So again, we appreciate the joint coordination that's happened over time, and hopefully we get to experience that in the future as well. So with that being said, you should have 4 documents in front of you related to the audit. The first being the obvious audit report, the second 2 being the less obvious, SAS letters to the board, and the 4th being the management letter. So I'd like to start with the 2 SAS letters. Again, I'm not going to read through these in depth, but essentially we are required to disclose any disagreements that we had with management or difficulties that we encountered over the course of the audit. Happy to announce that none of those disagreements had occurred during fiscal 18 or in the past. SAS 115 requires us to disclose any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. So you do see the letter in front of you, and that is for one reason and one reason only, and that is because we are required to submit our audit report to the comptroller's office on an accrual basis of accounting, whereas all of the accounting internally is done on a cash basis. So we come in and post upwards of 30 audit adjustments, and those are all bringing the books to full accrual accounting. The materiality of those dollar amounts forces us to issue that letter. But again, it's purely informational. It doesn't modify the opinion by any means. So again, you should see those 2 items in front of you.
Where are they at, Bob? I don't know what I'm looking for.
The SAS letter's primary report, we're in the actual audit document itself.
Sorry.
It should be like a couple page document, the SAS 114, and then the SAS 115 is a 1-page
Yeah,
letter.
the SAS are in the,
Oh, in our packet.
yeah.
Gotcha. That was the SAS.
So again, those are 2 pieces of required communication. I'd be happy to discuss them in detail, but again, I don't think there's anything more to it other than that. So with that being said, if I could have you please open up your audit reports to page 1. This is our independent auditor letter. So if you can narrow your focus to that last paragraph there, you'll see the Lauterbach and Amen letterhead. The last paragraph there is our opinion paragraph. So this is, we have issued a clean opinion or unmodified opinion this year, which again, that is the highest form of opinion that can be issued in the governmental accounting world. So again, kudos to everyone involved. What this means is that the financial statements were presented fairly. There were no material misstatements that remained after the audit adjustments, and that we felt that there was a sound internal control environment in place over the finances. So again, the highest form of opinion that you could possibly get. So again, good job. If you could skip through a couple pages, you'll run into the management discussion and analysis. I'm not going to read through this. I think we'd be here all night, but I do recommend reading through this as it provides a great executive summary of kind of what happened during the fiscal year financially. It's all in narrative form, so it really simplifies some of the more complex financial statements that lie behind it. Jumping to those complex financial statements, if you skip past the MD&A page numbers, you will run into the first of our 2 financial statements, which is our statement of net position. It's on page 3. the statement of net position is essentially your government-wide balance sheet. So you have your government-wide and your fund level balance sheets. Government-wide level is presented full accrual, so you'll see is broken up. You have your primary government and it is split into governmental and business type functions. So if you look at page 4, the net position number, it's the last number on the bottom of those pages. I'd like to point out that governmental activities as a whole, which encompass your general fund, all of your special revenue funds, your debt service fund, and your capital projects fund, the net position decreased by $147,000 this year, which is a little bit less than 1%. So again, not a big hit, but it is something that I'd like to point out. Whereas your business type activities had actually increased by 1% or $114,000. So the net effect of those two was a net decrease of $33,000 to your net position. Moving on, the next couple of pages will have your government-wide income statement. I don't want to dive too much into the numbers tonight, but this will have your breakdown by your type of revenue source. So you have your charges for service, operating grants, and there are zeros this year for capital grants and contributions. But and then down below you have your non-program revenues, your taxes, your intergovernmental revenues, and transfers, things of that nature. So if I could have you flip one more page, please. Typically during these presentations we'd like to focus on the general fund. So I'd like to point out that the fund balance line item, you'll see a $631,936 fund balance for the general fund. This decreased by $36,000 this year. No specific reason, but just in general operations. There are a couple of different revenues that had decreased this year on page 9, which were your intergovernmental charges for service, licenses and permits, and fines and forfeitures. So a combination of those revenue sources decreasing slightly, I might add, but and then increased expenditures in your public safety and public works functions is what is creating that $36,000 deficit. So, all right, and then if I could have you flip to the notes, please, which starts on page 14. Again, I think we might be here all night if I read through all those notes of the financial statements, but there is one thing in the notes that I wanted to point out, and that is on page 40. This is your IMRF note disclosure. So last year, the village carried a net pension liability of $718,000. Well, because of the earnings on IMRF's assets this year, that is actually up to a positive $53,000 asset. So you can see that is directly attributable. If you look a couple lines up, it's $748,000 of investment earnings because of the market conditions this year. So
rates dropping from 10.77
Yep.
down to 7.
absolutely, you should see positive effects from that. Absolutely. So that was the one thing from the notes that I wanted to point out to you.
We really, from a financial point of view, do not want to go over 5,000 population in 2020.
Yep. Yeah, you got it. All right, and then again, skipping a couple pages is our required supplementary information. This includes things like your budgetary to actual schedules, your fund financial statements for some of your non-major funds, as well as just additional supplementary information. But again, I'm not going to cover that tonight in tonight's presentation. So that does it for the audit report. Now I'd like to move on to everyone's favorite, the management letter. Again, I'm actually happy to report that there were no new management letter comments this year. So we did not identify anything as a recommendation or a weakness, misstatement, things of that nature that we felt needed to be disclosed from fiscal 18, which is great. We had 5 prior recommendations related to our audits in the last 3 years, and those can be found in here. I'll go through each one of them briefly. GASB 7475 is an upcoming accounting pronouncement. If you remember, a couple years back, GASB 6768 was implemented, and that's where that IMRF net pension liability stems from. Similar fashion is going to be with this GASB 7475. It relates to retiree health insurance. Now, I know in talking with Bob, the village does not offer any explicit benefit for retirees to piggyback on the plan, but it is a state mandated requirement to allow them to be on your plan, worst case scenario.
Under COBRA.
Yes, exactly. So because of that, there's a chance that GASB 7475 is requiring municipalities to have an actuarial evaluation done on your OPEB plan, which is your other post-employment benefits. There's a chance that an actuary study could be necessary for that, for the GASB 74, 75, but we will be working hand in hand with our actuary team to figure out, based on premium structure and current participants, whether or not that liability would even be high enough to report in the financial statements. If it's an immaterial dollar amount, no actuary study will be needed. Does that make sense? It's a pretty complicated.
We're in a self-funded pool, which makes it very complicated. You
Yes.
actually have retirees that are paying into the system that aren't taking as much out and actually contributing to the benefit.
Absolutely.
So it's very, very complicated.
Yes, and if you can remember how much of a mess GASB 67, 68 was and trying to get it implemented and everything like that, it's gonna be all over again with 74, 75. So our duty is to obviously make you aware of that, and that study might need to be required for fiscal 19 next year. But again, I would find it hard to believe that it would be a material dollar amount, but you can't, I mean, don't hold me to that without us running the estimator, so. Any other questions on that one? No? Okay. So we will move on to number 2. This is related to restricted bank accounts. So over the course of our audit field work, we identified several accounts that are not, the activity is not truly recorded to the village's books. And again, in talking to Bob, it sounds like it's village policy and everything like that, but it's our job to make you aware of recommendations. And there were accounts such as Ribbon of Hope, Asset Forfeiture, Nuisance Abatement, Village Newsletter, and then some of your commissions and Cardinal Creek and escrows. So those are all entries that we end up having to post at fieldwork, posting the activity to the financial statements, because it is not maintained internally by village staff. So we recommend bringing everything under the village's wing and keeping all accounting internal. That's kind of what this comment comes down to. So we know that the accounts are being reconciled in terms of the receipts coming in and the disbursements going out. Great controls over all of those functions. It's just a matter of recording the activity to the books. That's all it is.
If you record the activity to the books, you also have to follow our internal controls procedure, which means bills will only be paid once a month. That includes 4th of July bills. And that's the law. So if you're gonna put those in our system, all of those accounts have to follow the law.
Yep.
So there's no commission flexibility when it comes to how they balance their books or pay their bills. They're gonna have to follow our system.
Absolutely.
So on the 4th of July, it's gonna be very difficult.
Absolutely. I know there would be difficulties that you'd have to encounter to implement this comment, but again, we just need to make you aware of some recommendations that we see across our other audit clients.
It's been noted since we started the
Absolutely.
commissions.
Yep. And like I said, great controls over the actual bank accounts themselves. That's not in question. So.
And I'll give you an example, youth commission, the one on the haunted house thing. They're collecting money from the kids, they get one check, they cut it to the haunted house. That all happens in a 2-week span. It's hard to get village internal controls on.
Especially with the small staff, on site here. So I do understand, but just need to make you aware. The third one is a general budget and general ledger recording comment. There was a couple instances where we saw like invoices split to, yes, different budget accounts or.
And soon it's gonna be Matt. Matt's learning how to do some of that.
Great.
Yeah, but that's, yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of a general comment, just encompassing budgeting as a whole and financial reporting with the number of audit adjustments that we end up making. So very general comment for budget and general ledger recording. Number 4 is the one that was implemented this year. In years past, we had noted a couple personnel file documents that we had requested were unable to be provided. However, the number of exceptions this year were we felt comfortable with implementing this comment, and moving forward it sounds like all new hires are required to follow a specific protocol. So again, that's great. This comment has been implemented and it will be completely removed from the subsequent year's management letter. But in year 1 it needs to be on here as implemented so that financial statement viewers can see.
Unless it's an I-9 form or something.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
That wasn't on last year's, correct?
It was. Yes.
It was?
Yeah, so this is a prior recommendation, which would have meant that we would have issued it in the past. And
I'll give you an example, my personnel file doesn't have my original application. What they ever did with
Yeah.
my original application in 1988, I don't have a clue. But it's not complete because it's not in there.
Absolutely. So, but again, we felt that the level this year was comfortable enough where we felt this comment can be implemented. So, and the last comment is just a general funds over budget comment. We assess this each year, actual expenditures versus what the budgeted expenditures were, and there were 3 funds that were over this year, which was the July 4th, the public infrastructure, and the water sewer. So. That finalizes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that
I
you
have
might
one
have.
question. I know we argued on the phone for over an hour.
We did.
It's not noted in here, and you said you were gonna keep it in there. What was the change in the findings on that?
Change in findings on,
That resolution you had, back in, I don't know when it was adopted, 2007, that said the debt fund has to have a minimum of 112.5 in it. And on accrual, you noted that it was 700,000 over.
oh, so for fund balance reserves.
Yes, and we had a big, long discussion. I think Donna was in the room, Jeanette
Yes.
was in the room, I was in the room with you
Okay.
on the phone, debating that comment. And I noticed that in this letter that was taken out, was there a change in heart on the part of your firm to take that comment out?
No, again, that's analyzed each year, so I don't know if, like, our report team takes care of reviewing fund balance versus fund balance policy and making sure that those targets are established. I would have to take a look at our
I was
testing.
prepared to debate you on that comment.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I looked and it's not in here, so it's like, oh, okay. But I want to bring to the board's attention that there was a long debate
This,
regarding the
this is what he's
debt
talking about.
service being way underfunded.
Did that have anything to do with the bond issuance, the IPA issuance though? Weren't the proceeds recorded to the water sewer fund?
Yes, we were using our reserves to pay the engineer to design the plant, and then the EPA paid us the 600
Okay.
some thousand back. So now we're sitting on 770,000 in the debt fund, and it's unrestricted because.
Yep. Well, I mean, I think in a sense you kind of just answered your own question with the reserves because you're currently at a $700,000 fund balance, which would exceed your fund balance
You
threshold.
had a sensitivity over that comment, like,
Yes.
oh my lord. You know, you can't go tell the board the debt fund is underfunded.
Yeah.
So, okay, but I wanted to make that known that that comment was in the original letter and we debated that ad nauseum with Brad. I was surprised to see it was removed, so. All right, that's all I've got.
Anything else
Questions?
for Brad? No? If not, I'd like to make a motion approving the acceptance of the audit for fiscal year 2017, 2018.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There is a second, any questions of the motion? Roll call.
Kraus,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Caprows,
Yes.
Whaling,
Yes.
Basil,
Yes,
Missouri.
Yes.
that ends my report.
Thanks, Brad.
Excellent. Thank you all. Have a great evening. It's been a pleasure working with you. Excuse me.
Consider a motion authorizing approval of preparation, 5-year land application with sludge permit, Beecher and Women in the amount of $5,000. We have to reapply for our 5-year land application with sludge, permit. That's what this is. So I'll go ahead and I'll make a motion, to authorize approval of the preparation of the 5-year land application, of sludge for a permit with Beecher and Women in the amount of $5,000.
There's a motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second, any questions or motion? Roll call.
Missouri,
Yes.
Basil,
Yes.
Whaling,
Yes.
Caprows.
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Kraus.
Yes. Consider a motion authorizing the use of $4,000 in MFT to prepare an application for a grant not to exceed $200,000. DOE to installation of sidewalks in residential areas. This is something that just kind of came up. Bob can probably elaborate on it a little more. It came to the committee through email to pop this on the agenda for tonight. It would cost us $4,000 is what our share would be for this end of it. And what we're planning to do is, this is actually Safe Routes to School grant. We got the last one when we did the flashing signs. And when we did that, we had actually considered filling in sidewalks. So there's another one out there. We figure we go ahead and apply for it, and do just that, fill in gaps in sidewalks throughout the neighborhoods. So Bob, you wanna elaborate on?
The school board is voting on this tonight as well. because they have to participate by signing the resolution and by getting the parents to be surveyed. The only hang-up on this whole thing is I was told that the sidewalks have to have the new federally approved ADA ramps, the ones that we're connecting. So that is gonna have to be added into the scope of the job. So instead of getting 200,000 done, we might only get 100, 150, because the rest have to go into those ramps, but that's life.
Right.
You notice IDOT's replacing them on Route 1 right now.
It's happening all through concrete too. So, I'll go ahead, I'll make a motion authorizing the use of $4,000 in MFT funds, to prepare an application for a grant not to exceed $200,000 for the installation of sidewalks in residential areas for part of the Safe Routes to School grant.
So motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There is a second, any questions on the motion? Roll call.
Kraus,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Capros.
Yes.
Whaling.
Yes.
Basil.
Yes.
Missouri.
Yes.
Consider a motion adopting a quality-based selection procedure for the selection of an engineer for the Penfield STP project. The village is required to conduct an RFQ and a request for qualifications and a QBS quality-based selection process for the selection of an engineer for the Penfield STP project, since it's a federally funded project. This motion approves the IDOT process used for the selection of an engineer. The Public Works Committee and the village president become the selection committee for this engineering firm to conduct the Phase 2 design and Phase 3 construction management for this project. So, that being said, I will make a motion adopting a QBS procedure for the selection of an engineer for the Penfield STP project.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second, any questions on the motion? Roll call.
Missouri.
Yes.
Basil.
Yes.
Whaling.
Yes.
Capros.
Yes.
Meyer.
Yes.
Kraus.
Yes.
Okay, consider a motion authorizing a request for qualifications for Phase 2 preliminary engineering services for the Penfield STP project. And as I stated, we need to conduct an RFQ and a QBS, so I will go ahead and make a motion authorizing a request for qualifications and RFQ for the Phase 2 preliminary engineering services for the Penfield Street STP project.
So motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second, any questions on the motion? Roll call.
Kraus.
Yes.
Meyer.
Yes.
Capros.
Yes.
Whaling.
Yes.
Basil.
Yes.
Missouri.
Yes.
That was done PDQ.
PDQ?
Just as a note, I expect to get 4 proposals for the committee to review. It'll be HR Green, Strand, Robinson, and Baxter, those 4. And then the committee will interview those 4, whatever vote process it wants to use to select one of those 4.
Good, that's it.
Trustee Mayor.
Consider proposals for a presentation on understanding generational differences and the need for proper engagement. At the last meeting, this item was continued to this meeting to allow trustee Kaporis to join in the conversation and to seek other proposals from guest speakers in the field. In addition to the Bridgeworks proposal, a proposal has been received from Jeff Butler and also from Prairie State College, which are enclosed for your review. We had a phone conversation with Jeff Butler, Bob and I did, and his information is included. He charges $3,000 to come out, all inclusive, travel, everything. He didn't have a lot of suggestions during our telephone conversation. Some of you saw him at IML. He was kind of willing to go along with whatever we were interested in. He didn't have, a bunch of ideas. He did send his proposal. We had requested it and we didn't get it until the following week. We kind of sent a reminder and he had thought it had gone out previously, so he gave it to us the following week. Meantime, we spoke to Prairie State College, and they do have speakers that they'll present, and the information is in your packet, but they have several different types of presentations they would do. I kind of liked the one where they give you either a Gen X or baby boomer, depending on who's available, and a millennial. Each one does a 30-minute talk about different communication strategies, and then there's a 30-minute question and answer session. They would also get together with you ahead of time to try to find out exactly what you're trying to accomplish. And the whole purpose of all of this is trying to communicate better with the community to find out what they're looking for. You know, one of the situations I came up with is we've got a gazillion housing lots out there, and we're not even sure who our target audience is and what people wanna build at this point, what people are looking for in the future for recreation. We're working on our plan for the future, and we do have some input, and I forgot how many they said for that survey. Did they say there were around 300 people? Yeah, that submitted information on the surveys, but you wanna make sure when you're reaching out to the community that you're getting as much input as possible when you're coming up with a long-term plan. So, like I says, they had some lower priced ones. I believe their highest price to have several speakers was $4,300.
Prairie State one?
Prairie State. They had some for $1,500, $1,800. She says it's not that that's to have just a millennial come out. She says it's not that our millennials are worth any less. She says they just don't have quite as much experience. They haven't been doing it for quite as long to be able to command the same prices that somebody who is very experienced.
So you really don't know what you're getting.
I thought the highest one was 43.
$4,300, yeah.
That's what I was gonna ask, there's $1,100 difference for.
Yes, if you just get a millennial as opposed to throwing a boomer in there or a Gen X on top of the millennial. Or there's one where you can get two millennials.
And what you did say is that after, if some of the businesses would want to partner with the speakers and go to their facility and just target their individual businesses, they could also do that too.
Yeah, she said it's very ambitious to try to come up with a speaker to be all encompassing, to let the businesses, you know, to give the businesses information, to come up with government information, to be extremely specific to every single interest that would be there, school district. And one of the things she brought up is the school district may not be particularly interested in communicating with certain generations that they're not teaching, but they're also hiring teachers, and she says when you're trying to attract people moving into town, you need to find out what they're looking for in the school district. You know, you've got different generations that will be moving here and buying homes and raising families, and, you know, it would behoove them to take an interest in what those people are looking for as far as the school district. But the specifics of this one, it would be an hour-long talk split between one or two speakers and a 30-minute Q&A, was just to be able to see exactly how different generations process their information and how to best reach them, what they're looking for communication, what's gonna turn them off, where if you try to do something you've always done and nobody's paying attention to it or listening, you're not gonna reach people, even for volunteerism, for anything, unless you kind of reach them on the terms that they're accustomed to understanding.
Did we get any, references on the
I
Prairie State?
did not. I know she was gone for the weekend, and I believe they were closed yesterday.
So do we have any idea who we get from Prairie State?
No, she said they had multiple speakers available to do this.
And
But,
did
you know,
they give this presentation anywhere else?
hang on.
Yeah, I mean, the first one and the third one, we can, well, they're online, I know I looked them up to see, yes, sort of.
There are some, okay, so she sent me this at about 5 o'clock when I was at work. Typically, we do not share reference information with our clients, however, attached you will find an instructor profile and recent presentation evaluation from a Prairie State client to which Marty Chizek presented, that's one of their presenters. I hope this is helpful. Regarding the millennial presenter, I'm currently considering 3 candidates with hopes for selection by tomorrow. I realized, well, I think when Frank talked to her, he was talking about trying to get this done in the first or second week of November. So she's kind of barreling through trying to get us the information we need. We don't necessarily have to do it at that point, but that's kind of what she's working under for a deadline. I realize you do want this information soon, and I plan to send the additional content on the millennial presenter tomorrow. I do hope this helps. Please advise if you need additional information. So again, that's Prairie State. They were closed yesterday.
Who was the presenter?
Marty, hang on here, M-A-R-D-Y, last name C-H-I-Z-E-K. And I can forward this information along. She's got some-
M-A-R-D-E-Y?
Yes.
Marty Cheese.
Are these students or teachers, or who are these people with Prairie State?
This one is an instructor, the one that they sent. She's actually an RN and a nursing instructor. definitely a boomer.
So she's a nurse. Okay, look, the one,
So that was just basically, you know, we were out looking for different speakers as, you know.
yeah. So, when I brought this up, again, the idea of this is if you get a good speaker, what you should pull out of this is an idea of how different generations think. Okay? And what I was tying it to was our 2040 plan. And the fact that there was possibly 50, 60 people here that night of the community input. And you had maybe a handful of Gen Xers. And you had 50 plus boomers giving their opinions on a 2040 plan for the village. We brought up the fact that we wanted to try to reach out to younger generations, millennials and Gen X, I generation, whatever you want to call it. These are the people that coming up are going to be looking to move into our town. How do we attract them? How do we retain them? We need to, if we can't get the information from them, I feel it is our duty to understand them the best we can. It is our duty to understand what they're looking for in recreation, what they're looking for in living situations, as far as renting, owning, multifamily, single family. What do they want? What do they want in a work-life balance? What makes them tick, in a sense? What are they looking for? What could they possibly be looking for in a community? What can Beecher do differently than it is right now to attract these younger generations? Okay? We understand. I think we got a pretty good grasp of what, and I'm not saying these other generations aren't important, but I think we've got a grasp of what the boomer generation that lives here want from this town in the next 5 years and 20. I think we got a small taste, and I got a feeling possibly some of the surveys, just from talking with people in town in my demographic, the Gen X generation, of giving feedback. From what I heard, a lot did do the survey. They seen it on Facebook and stuff like that. And just like any high school kid will tell you, and I know Trustee Kraus has a couple, and they'll tell you, Facebook, what are you talking about? That's for old people. I don't do Facebook. So the whole idea of this, at the end of the day, on this generational differences, I made a recommendation on one that I see, one that I feel will accomplish all that. Is he a little more expensive than the other two? Yes. I can tell you, I've seen them, I know what we're gonna get out of it. The other two, I don't know. So that's just my thoughts on it. I mean, I don't know, the rest of the board thinks.
Prairie State's a bit of a wild card. We have absolutely no idea what we're going to get. Not the cheapest option unless we go for, you know, some of the lower plans. The reason I kind of liked their option of having a Gen X and a millennial, or a boomer and a millennial, depending on who they send, is sometimes if you communicate on one particular level, people accept things a little better. If you have an audience full of boomers and you put a millennial up, are half of them gonna listen and half of them say, I don't gonna listen to that stuff, who cares what they think? You know, so I thought it would be nice to have the two separate generations included in the same thing. That was the plus with Prairie State. However, I have no clue who these people are, what kind of speakers they are, absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
Those of you who were at IML, you heard Jeff Butler. I met with him, I was just a little less than excited that he was a little lackadaisical and didn't bother to send his, you know, his quote, or, you know, it's like, hey, well, I'll give it to you.
I think, as much as I kind of like the idea of Prairie State, the idea is that you want somebody that's going to explain to us how these generations mix and work together also. We shouldn't need to have a boomer speaker, a millennial speaker, a Gen X speaker. You should have somebody that, this is what they do. They are a keynote speaker on this subject. And I think that kind of narrows down it to the Phil guy and the Jeff Butler. I mean,
Cause they can bridge that gap.
they can bridge it and put it together as one, and this is what they do. I mean, no offense, I mean, I'm sure this lady's a decent speaker, but she's a nurse teacher. These other people, this is what they do for a living. They are keynote speakers. They make presentations for a living. They don't teach nursing for a living and do this on the side.
My issue too, money-wise, which we brought up before, if you go for the cheapest option in anything, and then you don't get the results you're looking for, whatever you did spend was a waste of money. Not that, you know, the top end has to always be the best one, but I didn't wanna look at it as let's get the cheapest possible option, because you're trying to achieve something and you wanna get some results with what you're spending. So if you're just going out looking at the price tag and saying, okay, this one's pretty cheap, let's do that. If it teaches you nothing and you get a bunch of people in a room and you could flush the money, no matter how much it was. That's my thought.
Have there been any other organizations in town that were willing to participate in this financially?
Tomorrow night I have an executive board meeting with the chamber, which is where I was intending on bringing it up, and I think they would have to still bring it to the membership. I was gone for the last 10 days.
The fire district, I don't remember what the specific dollar amount was, do you?
I don't remember them committing. I remember them still kicking around and waiting for a meeting. I don't know if they had that meeting.
And another option too, which I did not pursue
Email on
yet.
this, or did they just call you on it?
Who's they?
The fire district.
No, it's in formal
They-
discussions with the fire.
They
chief.
threw out a figure of what they were trying to get at them, if it was formally approved.
That's why I didn't mention the figure, I wasn't sure it was passed yet. The school board, not really. There was mixed reaction at school board.
Did you get back to us on that while I was gone?
Informal, no, not formally, by the type of email and correspondence.
And I don't know if Bridgeworks could possibly have any other rate as far as for a nonprofit, you know, a smaller community, that's something we could, you know, always attempt to. This particular speaker lives in Minnesota, that's not a ton of travel. My
Yeah.
brother comes in from Minnesota, you know.
I know the
4 or
number
5 times a year.
15,000 was put out there, and that's just, that's
Your
insane.
brother gave us that?
I mean, it's $10,000 flat fee. There's no way Minnesota to Chicago for a speech for a night, and back to Minnesota is $5,000 in travel expenses. I think you're looking at a grand, maybe, a grand 1,500 on top of the 10 in the travel expenses. And like I said from the beginning, is to me, look, if a deciding factor is whether or not somebody else contributes to this, then I don't know if we're in it for the right reason, and we're sold on the idea of doing this, and this being something positive that we're able to use and implement as a board and as trustees. And to me, it's kind of got to be, this is what we feel, and we're confident that this could be a positive service to the residents by opening it up to the entire village and all the residents, while gaining professionally as trustees. And if that's the case, I think we go ahead and pull the trigger, and then anything you get from another taxing body or another entity or another group or an individual business or anything like that is bonus. I think if you try to make your decision on whether or not anyone's helping defray the costs of this, I don't know if that's the right way to be totally sold on the idea, so.
Do we get any, I think the one said something about, what was it in the Bridgeworks one, about afterwards you get flyers or whatever the out process is. Cause I mean, it's,
Follow-up type thing, whatever.
yeah, but like, I was at the school board meeting and one of their concerns was, like, the state school board just didn't seem interested. They took a vote, an open meeting, and it was, I think, 5 no's and 2 maybes, or somewhere around there. But a couple of comments were, one was, you know, if you're not able to attend, then what do you, I mean, we're just gonna pick a date and have it. I mean, their concern was if anyone can or can't attend and what they're then going to get out of it.
I believe if you pay a keynote speaker, you can video record it.
Well, we don't, I brought that suggestion up, that's something we can double check, but I don't see why you couldn't.
So if those that can't attend want to watch it, you probably could record a video.
But I know, yeah, one of them did have takeaways. Also, the Bridgeworks speaker, seemed like there was a lot more upfront work done. There was a whole plan for,
Yeah, they do interviews with 5, I think it said 5 people for an, to do a phone interview, and then they'll do another interview.
to kind of find out what you're looking for.
We got a customized handout with presentation takeaways.
I think you made a very good point about taking videotaping.
I think we were asked that at a prior board meeting. I mean, obviously we can answer that.
So that's something we could definitely double check.
Is the subject too broad too? I mean, if we have the entire community there, can Bridgeworks put together a presentation with takeaways that hit all the targets?
Well, all we would give them our criteria of what we want to meet.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are based on employees, you know, how employee groups work, others are interaction with community and.
We determine, that's our determination as
That's-
to what we want to.
Yeah, I mean, when he,
That's what the interviews are for, I think.
yeah, when this happens, yeah, they interview 5, up to 5 key stakeholders. So I think, one of the key stakeholders would be the committee. In my opinion, that's who it should be. Along with the mayor, it's been the administrator, it's probably gonna be on a conference call. And then if you get other people involved in it, you know, if the fire district does end up contributing, I'd say you name them one of the stakeholders and let them give some input, and they will address some of the things they're talking about. I think some of the things that, what the fire district would get out of this is on a professional level, right? I mean, who are their recruits right now? Who's coming in that they're trying to attract and retain to be firemen in the, you know, fire district, in the Beecher Fire District? It's not boomers, it's not Gen Xers, right? I mean, it's millennials and Generation Edge. So.
You never passed the fit test.
You know, absolutely not.
Speak for yourself.
But, you know, and I think as ourselves as a village, I mean, we're able to gain a lot out of this in the helps of planning, but, I mean, I'd like to see our police department there. I think this is something that can benefit the chief. I mean, it's the same thing. Who is the, you know, his applicants? I mean, it's flat out says, I mean, we're looking for, you're creating a list and there's an age limit on there, right? A maximum age of 35. You just eliminated Generation X and boomers. You just said, we don't even want you. We have to have, we gotta have millennials and younger.
Good job, chief.
Our public works department, I mean, our public works department is a bunch of millennials. But who is your staff? Who are you reporting to as a department every day? You're reporting to a bunch of boomers. You know, your administrator, excuse me, and your mayor. How do you guys relate? You guys have a different mentality and way you work than a boomer does. It's something that can help the village as a whole, all of our departments, top to bottom. So, I don't know.
And I would fall off my chair, no, I wouldn't, I would guess not, if the chamber was not interested. This is something that would
Again, I
particularly
have not had
benefit
the
them.
chance to sit down and have a discussion like we had tonight, and maybe we'll finally call the meeting tomorrow night. Coincidentally, today I had a conversation with a businessman who was complaining about not being able to get good help, young help. And the young help he had didn't want to work.
Oh, I heard
And
that.
I related to him, I said, well, that's exactly what we're trying to do, is that maybe you're just not understanding. The first thing I say is that there also needs to be a two-way street. They need need to understand us, we need to understand them, who, what, where, when, why, and who connected.
And that's what I know Bridgeworks does. They connect it all. They connect those.
They can do all the dots and then connect all the dots.
Can I make a suggestion, Marcy, as chairman, can you reach out to Bridgeworks and say that Jonathan got this proposal? What can you do for us? Can you really hammer down the details? You know, because I think that proposal's generic. I bet you when they find out we're a government agency and everything, they might adjust it.
Well, when you spoke to them, I mean, they knew they had already looked at our website and the fact that
Well,
we
yeah.
had a 2040 plan. I mean,
Exactly, when I called them, and I, the whole time I did this, I was, me and Marcy were telephone tagging, and I'm forwarding her emails as I'm getting them and letting them know exactly what happened. The first time I called, they asked me what I was, you know, who I was, where I was from, you know, what I was interested in, this and that. They called me back. They did, in the time before they made this presentation to me, and Marcy said, they had called me and said, okay, we saw Beecher 2040, we looked it up, we saw the website, we read your village minutes, we understand what you're doing here. That's the type of research and kind of a speaker you would be dealing with. That, I mean, before they even call you to
I
make a
did not get
proposal,
the
they're
sense-
understanding who they're talking to and what you're possibly looking for.
I don't get the sense of Jeff Butler.
No.
No, his was extremely generic, just, yeah, here's what I do, I talk some.
This would probably be the exact speech word for word that you heard it. I don't know. That's what it is.
What, I know we mentioned this, you had money in your budget, how much was in your line?
3,000 is in my budget. right?
Correct. But there was talk about just adding this to the generator project and doing the supplemental at the end of the fiscal year. If this is something the board wants to do, so we don't have to go in there and try to raid departmental budgets to find money for the speaker.
And I think the other part of it too is, what I'd like to see be a motion for like a not to exceed number. And let the committee do their work and come to us with a presentation of what they wanna do, but I think a commitment on our end with at least a not to exceed number, that only helps in negotiating. We can sit there and we can talk to the Chamber of Commerce, we can talk to the school board, but until we show them that we're doing this and it's a go and we're moving forward with this, it's okay, well, we'll see what you guys do, and it's a bunch of back and forth. You know, we've talked about this for a couple months. I really appreciate, with everything that came up with me last meeting, with me not being able to attend, you guys kicking it to here, but I'd like to see a motion of a not to exceed number. See what happens with it. Make a vote. Ready to do it?
Yeah, I'm sitting here with the trouble working on
Fine,
it
I'll
not
do
to
it.
exceed in my head.
I'll make a motion for the committee to, you know, put the rubber to the road. Motion to contract a generational difference speaker, an amount not to exceed $12,500.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second, any questions on the motion? Roll call.
Missouri,
Yes.
Basil,
No.
Whaling,
Yes.
Capros.
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Kraus.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, get your work done, Brent. And just for discussion, are we still trying to put this in a time frame, or?
I don't know.
Get
I
it
don't
done.
know that we'd be able to, yeah, I don't know that we'll be able to get this.
I
that
see it at this
holiday's
point more
coming
an
up.
implementation strategy of your 2040 plan is to engage all generations. We're not just picking on the millennials here.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? We engage all generations in communicating with each other. It's more of an implementation at this point than
Yeah.
a because they're kind of wrapping up the survey work now, and now we're going into the planning stage.
Yeah, and that's coming up
Yep.
pretty quick,
So,
yeah,
and
there's
then
no
they're
way
getting
we'll
into the
get this.
holidays, you want maximum effect. If you're flying a guy in from Minneapolis to do a speech, you don't want it to happen on a day when you're having a snowstorm. So you're probably looking at a March to May windows when you want to do it.
Well, let's see what
It can snow, March and April.
Yes, you
Yeah.
can, but the
It could
population.
snow in
If
October.
we're gonna wait for Chicago
can
weather,
snow.
I mean,
Yeah.
let's just do this
I don't want
video
to
teleconference.
do
Yeah,
diligence.
let Marcy do your diligence.
Yeah.
Find out what their
It
availability
could
is.
be
and
time when they piggyback and they give you a little rate.
I would see when they're available, and then I would check with the school and make sure we could get that Bobcat done if we're gonna open it up to the village, or to the, you know, residents and everything else. I think that's your two most important things is,
Yep.
what's their availability and the
And what
availability
do we have
of a
over
place that can,
Would hold 'em.
that can hold that, so.
Mhm.
Any old business coming before the board? New business?
Matt, you're a couple of weeks into the implementation of the employment plan, is it working out pretty well?
Very well.
You got the 2 full-timers and the 2 part-timers accept the positions, is that correct?
Correct, yep. Yeah, everything's going exceptionally well. Thank you guys for approving that. Helps us out tremendously.
New business anymore? Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion made, is there a second?
Second.
Second